Good afternoon, gentlemen. Mr. Paul Glossop, who sings the tenor part in the CBSO chorus, and Mr. Simon Halsey, the chorus master. The program is huge, isn't it?
The program is huge. How is it from the singing point of view, Paul?
It's huge, but manageable. The host, I think, is relatively easy. The other two are Olympic in their proportions,
yes.
I think.
And our hotel is very near the Olympic Stadium here, and I think Olympics is what we're thinking. I should just explain. We are doing an oratorio by Walton that in itself, although it's not very long, is very tiring because it's so fast. The score is as thick as any other score that lasts 1.5 hours, and the whole piece only lasts 34 minutes because a lot of the music is quarter note equals 200. So the conductor has to go very fast, and we are turning pages very quickly. And the Bernstein is very dramatic, very jazzy, and in Hebrew, which actually is quite an easy language to sing,
really?
Thank goodness, because all the vowels are Italian. They're all pure vowels, and that makes it fairly easy, doesn't it?
It does, yes, yes. It's it's not difficult to learn all because it's not that long, and it's familiar to a lot of the
Yes.
chorus. We have sung it before, I think.
That's right. We've sung. The Bernstein is sort of a repertoire piece, which means that we do it once every 3 or 4 years, and the Walton perhaps also. But the Holst is new to us. Now, normally you wouldn't do 3 great big choral pieces in one program with orchestra, I think.
Have you ever done something like this?
We've never done this much singing in one concert before, I don't think. But, of course, it makes sense, because if we're going to come all the way from Birmingham in England to Helsinki and spend 4 days here, the orchestra is entitled to get its money's worth.
And it's a challenge, but it's great fun.
So how have you prepared for this in the chorus?
Well, I think it's a question of preserving one's voice. And in that, we have to have the right technique. And in Birmingham, we're very lucky to have all the support in the choir that we need to secure our technique. Simon helps. We have a chorus voice coach, and I just hope our technique allows us to sing so much. But it's all about technique, I think, isn't it?
It is, and also rehearsal time. So for this project, because I saw it coming 2 years ago, I put down much more time than usual. So we've been rehearsing it for 12 weeks. So we had to get the notes learnt and the language, the Hebrew language learnt. And then I've been trying just to make sure that it becomes very familiar in our bodies, so we're not always having to think what comes over the next page, but we sort of know. So it's in a way rather like sports training. It's doing lots of press-ups until you don't notice you're doing them any longer.
How much do you rehearse in general?
Well, the choir theoretically rehearses just one evening a week on Wednesdays for 2.5 hours, but it doesn't work out like that because we are what's called a symphonic chorus, so our job is to sing with the orchestra. We exist to sing with the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, and then we tour like this when we get the opportunity. And so every concert like this one has, well, this occasion there are 2 concerts, there are 2 orchestral rehearsals, there is a rehearsal with the conductor, so that's already 5 calls this week. So if you add up the very busy weeks with concerts, plus the weekly rehearsals, it works out at something like 90 calls a year, which for an all-volunteer chorus is a lot of time to give up. And I'm very grateful to them.
So it doesn't bother you at all that these voices are not what one calls professional voices?
Well, it's a question of tradition, isn't it? Here in Scandinavia and in the United Kingdom, most choirs are not paid. In Germany, there are a lot of professional paid choirs. But it doesn't mean that people don't have good singing techniques, that people don't have singing lessons, that like here in Scandinavia, a lot of people in Britain, they sing in school, they sing at university, they're always a member of a choir. And so it is a hobby on the one side, but actually it's more as a lifestyle for people, isn't it? It's a very important decision.
Very much so. One has to build the chorus into one's life entirely, one's work, one's home, one's everything. And the chorus, has to be considered whenever you're planning ahead anything, holidays, family time, etc.
Yes. Because in fact, well, if you just tell them what you do for a job, in fact, you are a very important man.
Well, I'm an ear, nose and throat surgeon as a job. But I've managed over 28 years to kind of weave the chorus into my work and my life. And it's been a very essential part of my life, I've got to say. Very significant and very, very enjoyable, very special, a great privilege.
And the choir is made up, we have an airline pilot, and he flies for an airline who is prepared to roster him onto flights that get him back to Birmingham on Wednesday evenings. So British European Airways management collaborates to get one of our bases to all our rehearsals. We have a surprising number of priests, don't we? I think 8 now.
Quite a lot of lawyers too.
A lot of lawyers, a lot of teachers, a lot of university teachers. But when you see the choir, you'll also see that there are a very significant number of young people in the choir. And this is students from the various universities. And also we have a very big program of youth choirs and children's choirs. And a lot of kids sing with us from the age of 8 until 18. Then they perhaps go away to a different city or a different country to university. And they perhaps come home to Birmingham when they're 22 or 23 and rejoin.
It's been very important, hasn't it, in the evolution of the chorus, particularly the female voices. We've got a soprano section which is extremely young. I think the average age is something like 30 or less.
Yeah, 30. And also my conducting students, for example, have to sing in the choir. So we've got 2 very useful basses that way and so on. So we managed to keep it very vigorous.
What makes Simon musical chorus master founded? And there was one of the most famous, I guess.
He is indeed, and of course ability, but I think what we notice most of all when we get other chorus masters coming is the difference in work rate. We just sing more. And
I keep them very busy.
But then it's a question of hearing what is correct and what is required, and I suppose that's a skill that. Well, how many years have you been doing it?
Well, I've been the chorus master of this choir for 32 years now, and I've learnt on the choir. I was 22 years old when I began, and I hardly knew what I was doing. And now a lot of the repertoire comes back for the 3rd, 4th, 5th time. And you learn how to handle people, I think. I've written a book about this, and it's about feeling the atmosphere in the room. Are you going to push them because they're tired, or are you going to let them relax? Do we now need a joke, or do we need a bit of pressure? Do we need to take the break a bit early? But also, as Paul says, it's really hearing. So that choirs, I've learnt this from the professional choirs I work with in the Netherlands and Germany, they don't want just to repeat for no obvious reason. So we'll do something, and then I very clearly say, tenors, the G sharp isn't the right note, we need to correct that. Basses, we need more crescendo. Sopranos make a rounder sound. And now we do it again. And then everyone knows what they're doing. Whereas so many less experienced colleagues just begin at the beginning and start again. But it's rather like if you're learning the piano, you only practice the measure that you find difficult. You don't need always to begin at the beginning. And it's very obvious, but you just get it, as in all jobs, by experience.
He's being very modest. He's a wizard.
Do you change your methods when conducting, for example, the Berlin Rundfunkchor? Or
Well, yes and no. So, I mean, very often on a Wednesday I will conduct my radio choir, the Rundfunkchor Berlin, from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock in Berlin, and then I fly to Birmingham, and from 6:30 till 9 o'clock I conduct this choir, and I go home and go back to Berlin the next morning. Well, do you know, it's not so different, because this choir, we call it amateur. But I don't really allow the use of that word. I say that it's a volunteer choir, which just means that they are very, very skilled singers who happen not to be paid for it. And therefore, actually, you know, I work them in almost exactly the same way. Almost exactly.